The Keir Starmer government is facing a massive backlash after intervening in what should be a straightforward policing decision. West Midlands Police, working with Birmingham City Council's Safety Advisory Group, made the responsible decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters from attending their Europa League match against Aston Villa on November 6th. But instead of backing his own police forces, Starmer has thrown them under the bus. The police didn't make this decision lightly. The decision was made in line with current intelligence and previous incidents, including violent clashes and hate crime offenses that occurred during the 2024 UEFA Europa League match between Ajax and Maccabi Tel Aviv in Amsterdam, according to West Midlands Police. This is standard procedure. This is how public safety works. But Starmer doesn't seem to care about that. This is the wrong decision. We will not tolerate anti-Semitism on our streets. The role of the police is to ensure all football fans can enjoy the game, without fear of violence or intimidation, Starmer declared on social media. Notice how he immediately jumped to accusations of anti-Semitism, completely ignoring the legitimate safety concerns that led to this decision. This kind of reactive, politically driven response has become typical of a prime minister who seems more concerned with optics than operational realities, showing weakness on the international stage time and time again.
United Kingdom, where's United Kingdom? Where's my friend? Come here. Is everything going good?
Very good.
That's very nice that you're here. These people all came in like 20-minute notice, and I think it's fantastic. And we have so many others, and just so many others.
Sophie, it's pretty demeaning stuff. A lot of people suggesting Trump did this deliberately to belittle Keir Starmer. What's the reaction been in the UK?
Well, there's been mixed reaction here, Chris, of course, people mocking Sir Keir for this exchange. But we must remind viewers, the two of them, despite being very different, having very different political views, get on extremely well. And I would argue that Sir Keir Starmer has done very well in managing this relationship with the President Trump. And this was just, unfortunately, one of those awkward exchanges that you have that's caught live on camera. But he's done very well in the diplomatic relations, I would argue. And this is just one of those moments that he probably wishes the camera wasn't on.
His inability to understand the complexities of public safety decisions speaks to a broader pattern of leadership failures that have plagued his government from day one. But here's where it gets really interesting. The government knew this was coming. The UK Football Policing Unit said the Home Office was briefed last week that restrictions on visiting fans could be among the measures taken to police the November 6th fixture. So this wasn't some surprise decision that caught the government off guard. They knew it was being considered, yet they did nothing to address the underlying safety concerns that would make such a ban necessary. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch hit the nail on the head when she said this revelation left Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood with serious questions to answer about why her department did nothing to avert the ban. This is a weak government that fails to act when required, Badenoch said, and she's absolutely right. The timing of Starmer's outrage is particularly telling. The decision caused a political storm on Friday, with Mr. Starmer intervening to say the move was wrong. But where was this urgency when the government was being briefed about potential restrictions last week? Where was the proactive leadership to address the safety concerns before they reached this point? Now we're seeing the government scrambling to clean up this mess. Downing Street has pledged that discussions are happening at pace across government to overturn the ban. The government is working with policing and other partners to do everything in our power to ensure this game can safely go ahead, with all fans present, a government spokesperson said. But this reactive approach shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how public safety decisions work. The police classification of this match as high risk isn't arbitrary. Maccabi fans clashed violently with city residents in Amsterdam last season, when the team visited for a Europa League game against Ajax. Dozens were arrested, and 5 people were treated in a hospital following the night of violence, which was condemned as anti-Semitic by authorities, and which also saw some supporters of the Israeli team chanting anti-Arab slogans. This is the context that led to the safety concerns, but the situation has become even more complex. Maccabi's match against Hapoel Tel Aviv was called off by police on Sunday night just before kickoff as fans threw smoke grenades and pyrotechnic devices. The incident injured 3 officers and 12 civilians. This violence in Tel Aviv itself validates the safety concerns that led to the Birmingham ban in the first place. Yet instead of acknowledging these legitimate concerns, the government has chosen to frame this as a matter of principle. A government spokesperson said of this risk assessment, "No one should be stopped from watching a football game simply because of who they are." This completely misses the point. The ban isn't about who they are, it's about the documented history of violence and the assessed risk to public safety. The government's intervention has created a dangerous precedent. If police can't make operational decisions about public safety without political interference, then we fundamentally undermine the principle of operational independence. It is a long-established principle set out in law that the Police and Safety Advisory Group are operationally independent of government, and that it is for them to take decisions on safety, as was noted in parliamentary discussions. Birmingham is Britain's second-largest city with a diverse population. It has a large Muslim population who have played a major role in protests and marches held regularly in the city and nationally over the past 2 years against Israel's genocide of the Palestinians. The police have to consider this context when making their risk assessment. That's not discrimination, that's responsible policing. The situation has become so toxic that even the club itself has now backed down. In a statement posted on social media late Monday, Maccabi Tel Aviv acknowledged the efforts to overturn the ban, but added, "The well-being and safety of our fans is paramount, and from hard lessons learned, we have taken the decision to decline any allocation offered." The club itself recognizes the safety concerns, yet the government continues to push. What's particularly concerning is how this has been weaponized by extremist elements, but that changed with the intervention of Tommy Robinson. With Robinson's supporters potentially posing as Maccabi fans on the streets of Birmingham, we concluded that the risk had become unacceptable for innocent fans who just want to watch their team play, according to sources within the club. The government's inflammatory rhetoric has attracted the wrong kind of attention and made the situation more dangerous, not less. This isn't the first time such a ban has been implemented. In fact, in November 2023, Aston Villa banned fans of another club, Legia Warsaw, from attending a match on the advice of West Midlands Police, after supporters of the Polish club engaged in violence. Where was the government outrage then? Where were the accusations of discrimination? The hypocrisy is staggering. When it suits the political narrative, the government is happy to let police make operational decisions. But when those decisions become politically inconvenient, suddenly they're wrong and need to be overturned. This isn't leadership, it's opportunism. Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy has been particularly vocal in her criticism of the ban. What is completely different about this case is not just that it is the first time in this country since the early 2000s that a decision has been taken to ban away fans entirely from attending a game, but that the risk assessment is based in no small part on the risk posed to fans attending to support Maccabi Tel Aviv because they are Israeli and because they are Jewish. But this is factually incorrect, as the Legia Warsaw ban shows. The government's response reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how public safety works. Police don't make these decisions based on prejudice, they make them based on intelligence, risk assessment, and previous incidents. That risk assessment considered a range of factors, such as the risk of protests, the threat of wider disorder, previous fixtures with Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, and the impact on the wider community. This mishandling of public safety decisions reflects a broader pattern in the Starmer government's soft on crime approach that puts criminals before victims.
What prison and punishment is for, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Look, this is quite a detailed subject, so I will try to make it as interesting as possible for this time in the morning. But basically, this bill is all about freeing up prison spaces and nothing about protecting the British public. So if I can just try and break it down for people, the first thing that's going to happen is that if an offender gets a sentence of up to 12 months in custody, then there is a presumption that that must be suspended. So in other words, in plain English, if you get a custodial sentence of up to 12 months, you don't go to prison. Okay, you serve that out in the community.
So what's the point of being given a custodial sentence then?
Exactly. And most important example of where this could be an absolute betrayal of protection of the public is knife crime. Because if you are found in possession of a bladed article at the moment, there is a mandatory 6-month prison sentence. Now, often, for different reasons, the magistrates don't give that 6 months because people say, you know, they plead mitigation. But it should be a mandatory 6-month sentence. That means that they automatically should get 6 months. Under this new clause, then they won't get the 6 months. They will be let out. So the possession of a bladed article, what happens in that case? Now, Reform have put 10 amendments into this sentencing bill, and that was one of them, to remove that clause altogether.
Imagine the common sense of saying, you know, if you get caught with a knife under these ludicrous rules, again, to me, Sarah, it looks like window dressing. We're dealing with a prison problem. No, you're not. You're going soft on criminals, aren't you? That's the reality.
They're going soft on criminals, but they're trying also to free up prison spaces. This is the wrong way round.
Well, get rid of foreign criminals then. It's not difficult.
Oh, this is another one. So let me tell you, the other thing is that basically what I've just said removes the power of the magistrates to do any custodial sentence at all. So the magistrates are left with community orders only, none of which work anymore because the probation service is under-resourced and underfunded. The defendants come in, and they're so wise to it now. So they plead anxiety and depression, which means they can't do any unpaid work.
I love this woman.
And then they all tell me they're on universal credit, which means the maximum fine they can get is £40. So as a magistrate, you're absolutely tied. You can do nothing with these individuals.
Do you not feel like when you look at this piece of legislation, and more strength to your elbow about what you and Reform are doing with it, do you not feel like we're saying to criminals increasingly in this country that bad behaviour is acceptable, that actually, because we're so on our backsides in terms of everything, why we haven't built more prisons? I mean, I'd go the other way, and people think I'm, for barking mad.
Instead of supporting law enforcement in making difficult but necessary decisions to protect public safety, they've chosen to undermine police authority for political gain. This same weakness extends across their entire approach to justice and security. What's most damaging about this entire episode is how it undermines public confidence in both the police and the government. The police are being painted as discriminatory for doing their job, while the government is being seen as weak and reactive for failing to address the underlying issues that led to this situation. The government has now found itself in an impossible position. We are deeply saddened Maccabi Tel Aviv have turned down their away fan allocation, but we respect their right to do so, a government spokesperson said after the club declined tickets. They've spent days demanding the ban be overturned, only to have the club itself recognize that the safety concerns are legitimate. This whole saga exposes the Starmer government's approach to governance: reactive, politically driven, and fundamentally disconnected from the operational realities of public safety. Instead of working with police to address the underlying issues that create these risks, they've chosen to grandstand and point fingers. The message this sends is deeply troubling. Police forces across the country will now think twice before making difficult but necessary public safety decisions, knowing they might face political interference. This isn't how a functioning democracy should work. Moreover, the government's intervention has actually made the situation worse. By turning this into a political football, they've attracted more attention and controversy than the original ban would have generated. They've given extremist groups on both sides more ammunition and created exactly the kind of toxic atmosphere that makes events like this genuinely dangerous. The real tragedy here is that there was a path forward that could have addressed everyone's concerns. The government could have worked with police to provide additional resources, better intelligence sharing, and enhanced security measures that would have allowed the match to go ahead safely with all fans present. Instead, they chose the path of political posturing and public criticism. This episode reveals everything wrong with the Starmer government's approach to leadership. They're reactive rather than proactive, political rather than practical, and more concerned with optics than outcomes. When faced with a complex public safety issue, their first instinct was to blame the police rather than address the underlying problems. The damage to police-government relations will be long-lasting. How can police forces trust that their operational decisions will be supported when the government is willing to throw them under the bus for political gain? How can they make difficult but necessary public safety decisions when they know they might face public criticism from their own government? This isn't leadership, it's the opposite. True leadership would have been working behind the scenes to address the safety concerns before they reached this point. True leadership would have been supporting the police while working to find solutions that protect public safety while allowing the match to proceed. Instead, we got political theater and finger-pointing. The Birmingham ban controversy will be remembered as a perfect example of the Starmer government's failures. Reactive leadership, political opportunism, and a fundamental misunderstanding of how public safety and operational independence work. It's a masterclass in how not to govern, and the consequences will be felt far beyond this single football match.